We have something positive to talk about with United, and for once the positive side isn't speculating or predicting what might happen in the future. It's actually about what did happen. We beat Sheffield United 4-2, and for large parts of the game, I thought we played pretty well. So let's get straight into it. This was a game where we dominated the ball, around 72% possession, so of course that will be the main focus for today. What Manchester United were looking to do in possession, why some of the patterns I thought were pretty decent, some of the rotations were good, perhaps some of the problems that we still faced in this game as well, and how we eventually won. So let's just get straight into things. United playing out from the back, where it was pretty easy. Sheffield United in this sort of 5-3-2 shape, which can be a shape which is really aggressive out of possession. Sheffield just didn't choose to use it in that way, or apply the formation in that way. So the wing-backs weren't flying high to support the press, apart from in odd moments, as we saw for the goal. What's Onana doing? I'm not too sure. But in general, Sheffield United didn't press particularly high up the pitch. As a result, United were able to play out from the back and have a decent amount of space. Now, as you can probably see straight away, you don't have to be a genius to see this, the space is going to be with our two fullbacks, Dalot and Wan-Bissaka. Interestingly, this game, Dalot left back, and Wan-Bissaka on the right-hand side. But we can see this is where the space is going to be. Now, typically, this could be cancelled out by the opposition wing-backs. Bogle and Osborne pushing forward. Could have gone man for man on our fullbacks and really stopped them from having space in these areas. But they couldn't do that. And the reason they couldn't do that was because the two United wingers in the first phase, emphasis on the first phase, our two wingers started really high and really wide. Basically with the job of pinning the wingbacks back. We're then going to go to a 2-3 shape like this. And basically we're kind of pinning Sheffield exactly where we want them. So our two fullbacks can then receive the ball. And this is kind of an example of this. So you can see this is the first phase, 14 minutes into the game. Sheffield aren't really putting any pressure on the ball. And we've got our 2-3 shape. Casemiro and Maguire at centre-back. Eriksen as a solo pivot, although Bruno and Kobe are nearby. And Dalot and Wan-Bissaka either side. If you look at Dalot, you can see how much room he's got. And it's because at the top of the picture here, we've got Garnacho pinning the wing-back, stopping him from coming forward and applying pressure further up the pitch. So that's pretty smart. It's pretty effective from United. And it was quite a good method to pin back the Sheffield defence. And as you can see here, it gave Dalot so much room to receive the ball. We can see once again, Garnacho is still tying up this wing back here. Dalot has all the time in the world to receive the ball, get the ball down and play. As a result, United found it pretty easy to progress the ball through the first couple of phases because again, Sheffield aren't really applying pressure. We've got room in this area of the pitch, so we are able to play in this 2-3 shape, move forward with relative ease and get ourselves towards the middle third of the pitch, where we saw a slight change and adjustment to the shape. With Dalot inverting sometimes overlapping, but certainly moving further forward. Maguire would step to the left, Casemiro would play in the middle, and Wan-Bissaka would often, but not always, play in a back three. Of course, Sheffield United at this point are going to drop deeper into a 5-3-2, or sometimes a 5-2-3 like this, but more often a 5-3-2 shape. The two strikers are not really going to put too much pressure on the ball, but we can now see Casemiro as our solo pivot. Casemiro as our central centre-back, I should say. Maguire to the left, Wan-Bissaka to the right. And then what we saw was rotations in the midfield. So at times we would see Dalot invert alongside Eriksen, with Bruno and Kobe quite high up the pitch. And then on another occasion, Bruno would rotate with Dalot, or Kobe would rotate with Eriksen, or they would swap this way around. All sorts of rotations, players moving into different positions. And it allowed us really to overload Sheffield in a key area of the pitch. And the reason it allowed us to overload them was because you can see we have 4 central midfielders here. Sheffield only have 3. And when you actually put this onto the pitch and see it in action, you can see why it allows United to be fairly successful. So we've got it here. The 3-2 shape like this. Maguire on the left-hand side, Casemiro in the middle, Wan-Bissaka to the right. And then on this occasion, we've got Dalot and Bruno in the double pivot, with Eriksen and Kobe Mainoo playing higher. We've got another example here. This time Kobe Mainoo's dropped in. Pretty good rotation. And what I liked about this was that we were rotating, but we were always occupying the key zones. So when we were in this shape, most of the time, granted not all the time because it's not perfect, most of the time we did have 2 central midfielders, which I felt was a bonus. In the 2-3 shape earlier, I don't like it so much. When we move to the 3-2, we get that extra player in midfield, and I'm a bigger fan of the shape. So I like this from United. I like the rotation. And what it allowed us to do, as I said there, is overload the Sheffield United midfield. We can see here they only have 3 central midfielders, and the back 5 for Sheffield is being pinned back. All this is happening whilst United are creating a 4-man midfield. We can see we are going to overload Sheffield United in this key area of the pitch. And what this allowed us to do was create 2 versus 1s or 3 versus 2s on the outside of the Sheffield United midfield. So like this, we can see the 3 players marked here. And eventually, when we move the ball well, we can see we have two midfielders up against just one guy here. And this was really effective for United, particularly if we built down the right-hand side. We would kind of draw Sheffield onto us down this side of the pitch. Cobby might drop in here. Bruno Fernandes might drop in. If we are able to move the ball to the other side, though, we're going to get Eriksen and Dalot 2 versus 1 up against this central midfielder. And it allowed us to, again, progress the ball pretty well through this phase, and I enjoyed the rotations.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFifa for 10% off when you order.
So I just realised I accidentally had some of the names cut out. Hopefully they're back on screen now and you can see that a bit better. I do apologise for that. But let's get back to the video and the tactics and what we were talking about earlier. So we've overloaded the midfield. What's the benefit from here? We can move forward into the final third and again create overloads, 1v1s and 2v2 situations out wide. And this is where I felt United's performance was improved on recent weeks. This idea of a rotating box midfield isn't particularly new. The idea of building with a back three isn't particularly new. What was better in this game, in my opinion, and was perhaps one of the main differences in this performance and why we sustained the ball more, was because our wingers made much better decisions. Most of the time. Not all the time, as we will see. We will see a couple of bad decisions as well. But what they done was, when our wingers got the ball, rather than instantly going at the fullback every time, Garnacho and Bogle or Anthony down the right-hand side, they were slower. So what's the benefit of that? If you quickly go at the opposition every time you get the ball, you might beat them, of course, and you get yourself into a really good position. But you always run the risk of losing possession. And the issue of losing possession when you first receive the ball is that the rest of your players aren't set in what they are doing. So let's say Garnacho gets the ball out here. The typical rotation for United from this position, when it works, is that Garnacho will slowly move the ball inside, and then someone like Dalot will overlap, or Eriksen, or Bruno Fernandes. There's a few different players it could be. When we do it too quickly, and our wingers quickly act and quickly look to dribble, we leave ourselves with players out of position. So let's say Garnacho gets the ball here, and his first thought is, can I take on this wing back? So he dribbles straight at him. Dalot overlaps. When Garnacho now acts too quickly, he loses the ball. Sometimes, because we just don't have the most efficient dribblers in the world. Now, the issue with this is that when we lose the ball, we get counter-attacked. There's so much space in midfield because our players aren't set. What we saw in this game, largely, was a slower initial approach from the wingers. So when the wingers were receiving the ball, rather than instantly being aggressive, they were taking a couple of touches. What this allows us to do is squeeze the whole team over to that side of the pitch and apply minimum width, which we know Ten Hag likes to use. So, Dalot can get round on the overlap, obviously. He's going to be the width provider. But Eriksen can get over, Maguire can get over, Casemiro, Wan-Bissaka, but even Anthony on the far side, rather than being a super wide winger, he's going to move inside into these areas. Cobby's going to move across a little bit. Bruno Fernandes, again, the rotation could be the other way around. But it's going to allow us to get more players over. This is what I felt our wingers done much better in this game. And then sometimes, to supplement the attack, they would then play the overlap as well, which is really important. And I think it's one of Ten Hag's key attacking ideas. Again, we can see it here. So, Garnacho's going to receive the ball. And again, he doesn't act too quickly. Initially, he's in a 1 versus 1 situation. He could be bold, he could be aggressive, he could take him on. Instead, what he does is, yes, he carries the ball forward, but he doesn't actually take him on. He takes plenty of touches and waits for everyone else to move over. What we can see, the result of this is, if I quickly mark the players down here, I forgot to do it. Anthony on the far side, for example, has time to move infield. So we are using that minimum width idea. But also, Bruno Fernandes has time to make the overlapping run. As the run goes, Garnacho is now going to play the ball. Because he's taken his time and used the runner, we actually get ourselves into a 2 versus 1 situation here. Arguably a 3v2 with Dalot as well. We get ourselves into the final third. Bruno Fernandes puts a good cross into the box. Højlund gets across the front post and it goes behind for a corner. But it's because of our wingers making good decisions, slowing down, using the overlap and then working from there. Turning the 1 versus 1 into a 2v2, which is a more advantageous position for United to be in, to use the 2v2. Simply because the extra man, the extra decision, it helps the side. Another situation like this. Second half. Garnacho on the left-hand side of the attack. And once again, we can see initially he is 1 versus 1. But what we can see is our man here making the run forward to try and turn this eventually into a 2 versus 2 situation. Dalot does that. Dalot flies round on the overlap. And once again, Garnacho uses him. Dalot gets himself into the final third. We've turned 1v1 into 2v2. which nearly always suits the attacking team. Dalot gets into the final third, rides to the first challenge, and then looks to put a cross into the box. It's not perfect, but we get into a really good position. We've quickly got into their box. As always, though, we have quite raw wingers still, I feel. Whether that's Rashford when he plays, or Garnacho in this game, Antony's decision-making can be questionable. So sometimes it doesn't go so well. And when it doesn't go so well, it just looks bad. So Garnacho here, for example, we're in this same position we've been in several times already this game. The same pattern is going to occur. Dalot is going to absolutely fly around on the overlap. But for some reason, Garnacho decides to cut in and shoot straight at the defender when Dalot's there on the overlap. That's where our players just have to make better decisions in the final third. This is where tactically Ten Hag has actually done something quite clever. Got us in the 1v1 to the 2v2 situation out wide. Dalot's got himself into a great position. Every trigger, every pattern has worked perfectly to get us here. Then our winger makes a poor decision. Again, you can see how much room Dalot is in. So that was ultimately the problem for United in this game. In terms of why at times it was a bit slow and we struggled to break them down. Tactically, I thought it actually worked in possession. I thought it was quite nice. It got us into really good areas. The individuals just made the wrong decisions a lot of the time. And that's why, for parts of the game, the Sheffield defence appeared stubborn and difficult to break down. For example, down the other side, we know Antony's quite one-footed. Wan-Bissaka, when he got forward, is quite one-footed. Kobbie Mainoo is a brilliant player, but he's not an elite creative outlet. You know, Rasmus Højlund had a good game, in my opinion, but he's not a creative striker. So that's what we just lacked, that ability to find something out of nothing. Apart from those 2v2s out wide, which we only used sometimes, outside of that, we didn't have too much. But we did have a guy called Bruno Fernandes, who was out of this world. Now, again, this was in a side which had 72% of the ball. To me, that looks like a player who can play in a retention team. 110 touches, 66 out of 76 passes, 9 key passes, 2 goals, and an assist. Phenomenal. This man can play in a possession-heavy side, and he proved it in this game and also against Coventry as well. He was absolutely brilliant. Obviously, this wasn't a perfect day for Manchester United by any means. We still conceded 2 goals, went behind twice, and that is unforgivable against bottom of the league, particularly at Old Trafford, after what we've been through in recent weeks. The first one is just an error. Onana, I'm not sure what he's doing. He should play the ball long, so you can't really blame Eric for that one. Second goal is more of the defensive issues which we've seen all season long. Again, this was not a perfect performance. Defensively, I still think we had a lot of the same problems. Sheffield just lacked the quality to really expose it. In possession, though, I thought it was decent. I thought a lot of the patterns were similar, but our players executed those patterns a bit better. So we ended up playing some good attacking football at times, and we just needed that bit of quality from Bruno to get us over the line. So I think overall, it was nothing special, but it was pretty decent, borderline good, and it got the job done. Got 3 points. Bruno Fernandes was incredible, and it ends up being a pretty decent night. And yeah, I think we should take that positive. We won 4-2. Hopefully we can now kick on against Burnley and just aim for better football from now till the end of the season. That has to be the aim. Preparing for the FA Cup final, that has to be the aim. In terms of literally today, though, that's pretty much it. We won 4-2. It's a handy win for us to have. Let's try and keep moving forward. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.